Okay, so this is our page. When you see Obra Jira Nananum Son, what that is our Obra Jira observance. In Akan ancestral religion, Akan culture, the new year begins around the spring equinox. So we don't celebrate the new year, of course, at the dead of winter, like we said last night in the previous live stream. At the dead of winter, the dead of night, January 1st, darkness, cold, no life, and so forth. That's a cave dweller's winter. That's the Europeans' New Year. They say Happy New Year at the darkest, coldest, most infertile part of the year. That's ridiculous. So we have our New Year observance around this autumn equinox. That's the first balancing point of the year. The spring equinox is the second balancing point of the year, but the autumn equinox is the first. So it's the harvest time, but it's also the seeding time. So it's the end of the warm cycle. You harvest the fruits of your labor and so forth. They have the Yam Festival in Ghana. The Akan people in Ghana have the Yam Festival and so forth around August or September. Ours is always calibrated towards the autumn equinox. This year, the autumn equinox was September 23rd. That was the first full day of the autumn equinox. So therefore, that was our New Year's Day. That was the first day for us of 13,024. Of course, nothing happened 2,000 years ago. As we published in our book, Kuku Tumtum, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, Jesus never existed. Yeshua, Isa, Yahawashah, whatever name people want to use, fictional cartoon character who never existed of any race or in any form whatsoever. So we obviously do not acknowledge that. Same is true with Muhammad and Moses and Aaron and all these fictional cartoon characters. Now, so we have the harvest time, September 23rd, brand new year, September 23rd, 13,024. And that's also the seeding time. It's a time for conception. You harvest the fruits of your labor, but then you take the seeds out and you plant them. That planting is a conception. That is a beginning. Then 6 months later, the sprouting occurs, which is the spring equinox, and things are brand new. Fertility, the return of life and so forth. After the winter, after the resurrection and so forth, things start to spring forth. That is the second balancing point, the equinox, the spring equinox. Equal nights, 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness. That's a balancing point. But the first balancing point is the conception point. That is the autumn equinox. So this year, the autumn equinox landed on a Saturday, which we call Miminida in the Akan language. So on our page, we have Obrajira. That's the name of our New Year observance. We have a 7-day New Year observance. September 17th through September 23rd. This particular year, sometimes it's September 16th through the 22nd. It depends on when the autumn equinox falls. This year it fell on September 23rd, so September 17th through the 23rd, was our New Year observance. Now, excuse me. So let me switch right quick. Now, this is why that calendar piece is relevant for what we're talking about today. In the Akan tradition, you will see that when you hear people with names like Kwesi and Kojo and Afua and Kwaku and Akua and Ama and Ya and Aba and Yao and so forth, Kojo, Ajua, Akoswia, Kwabena, Abena, they will call them Dadin or day names, but in reality, they are Kradin, soul names. Now, this is our page, the Akradim Boson page. And we have a chart here of the 7 days of the week in the Akan culture, the names of the days and the names, male and female, that are associated with the days. But what's critical about that is the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week. So we have a 7-day week. We've published a couple of books on this and articles on each one of these deities that govern the days and so forth. But each day of the week is governed by the solar, lunar, or planetary body for that specific day, that governs that specific day. But the divinities that animate the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies are the forces in nature that govern the soul, the divine consciousness of the individual who is sent into the world on that day in Akan culture. So we have a chart of the days, the names of the divinities in Akan tradition. We also have a comparative chart with the Orisha in Yoruba, the Vodou, the deities in Vodun and so forth, in the Ewe language and culture, and also the language of ancient Khanit and Kamit, their most popular names, just so you can see who's who. But we also have a chart. So we say Akradim Bosom, the Akan are Bosom deities of the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies governing the 7-day week and the 11 body systems. So for example, when you see Benna and Abena, you see the planet Benna, or so-called Mars and so forth. If someone is born on Tuesday, which in Akan is called Benna Da, the day of Benna, the deity Benna, or the day of the divinity Abena, that's an indication to the community that the person was assigned to that deity pre-incarnation from the ancestral realm. So they were assigned to that deity, and that deity made sure that they came into the world on that day, into the world on the day that that deity's energy is bathing the planet. So the spiritual force, for example, that animates the planet Benna or Abena, so-called Mars, the feminine force, she is called Abena. The male force, he is called Benna. In ancient Kamit, he's called Bedat, Heru Bedat, or Heru Bedet. That is the divinity, so-called Heru of Edfu and so forth, the solar disk with the winged solar disk and so forth. He is Ogun in Yoruba. He's Benna in Akan. He's Ogu in Vodou and so forth. He's Heru Bedeti or Heru of Edfu or Heru Bedat in ancient Kamit. He was called Bedat in ancient Kamit. He's called Benna in Akan. Bedat and Bedat is the same divinity. And then you will see the female divinity is Abena. That is her title in Kamit. In Akan culture, in ancient Kamit, she's typically called, popularly called, Sekhmet or Sechimet. In Akan, one of her titles is Sechima in the Akan language. She's the warrioress divinity, a divine killer, destroying disorder, destroying evil, and so forth. She's also a divine healeress. She spills blood through warfare, but she also spills blood through menstruation. She's the female divinity of menstruation, that contractive force, that cleansing force, which is the menstrual cycle and so forth, that releases the egg. That's a cleansing process. It's a recalibrating process. She spills blood through menstruation, but she also spills blood through warfare. Now, her name is Sechiman Akan. She's Sechimet in ancient Kamit or Sekhmet. She's called Abena in Akan. She's called Bedat in ancient Kamit. So same titles in both languages and cultures, of course, because we come from that. Now, if a female is born on Tuesday, the female is called Abena. That's her Kradin or soul name, because that means she was assigned to the female divinity Abena, Sekhmet, or Sechima pre-incarnation. And Abena, Sechima made sure that her daughter will be sent into the world on her day. So when the child is born, the people will say, oh, she has been assigned to the divinity Abena. So her first name is Abena. My first name of Kradin is Kwesi. That means Kwa Asi. The divinity Asi was called Asir or Ausar in ancient Kamit. In Akan, he's called Asi, as well as Awusi and Awisi and so forth. Kwa Asi or Kwasi or Kwesi is a servant, Kwa, of the divinity Asi. So that's what Kwasi or Kwesi means and so forth. I was born on the divinity's day on Sunday, so I came into the world to carry that divinity's energy into the Afro-Akani human sphere. So the reason why that's important, hold on one second. Now, this particular year began on a Saturday, Miminida, and let's click on that right quick. And as you see, we have we have articles and books, and then articles on each one of the deities. You can download them for free, of course. So I'm going to scroll down real quick. So when you look at the divinity Afi, who's also called Het Heru, she governs on the feminine side, the female aspect of the planet Afi, or see later. But when she's operating through that particular planetary body, but she also possesses on the feminine side the planet Amini, which the White Snarl Spring called Saturn. And when she's operating in that context, to show what her title is, she's called Minit. So one of the titles of Het Heru is Minit. That is Amen Miniwa in the Akan tradition. So you see Minmini right there, Amen Miniwa in the Akan tradition. That's when this spirit is possessing the planet Amini, so-called Saturn. She's called Minminit or Minminat and so forth. In Akan, she's Amen Miniwa, the same title. That's the feminine force possessing the planet. Just like the spirit will possess our people through ritual song, ritual dance, ritual chant, and so forth. The spirit comes down, possesses, operates through the body of the person. And then when you communicate with that individual while they're possessed, that's the spirit operating through the body of the individual. In the same fashion, the spiritual forces in creation will possess the sun, the spiritual force penetrating the sun, utilizing the sun to transmit that deity spirit energy. They will penetrate or possess the moon, possess the various planets. And once they possess, their energy is bathing that orb and so forth. They utilize that orb to transmit their energy to Earth, of course. So when you see Het Heru possessing the planet Amini, she's called Minit. And on the masculine side, you have the deity Min. He's called Amen Min or Min Amen. This is why in Akan, the term for a Saturday is Min Mini Da, the day, the Da of the deity Amen Min. So Min Minida is Saturday. That's also associated with Min Minit, the female divinity. She governs the planet Amini, so-called Saturn. Now, and the reason why we went through that short little exercise before we get to that article is because this year, our New Year's Day was September 23rd. That was a Saturday. So that is the day of the divinity Het Heru, because she operates through that planetary body. And so this energy governs the entire year. Whatever day the year falls on, we're talking about the day of the week, not the European Gregorian calendar date, but the day of the week. Each day of the week has its own energy complex, as you can see here. So whatever day the New Year's Day falls on, that colors the energy of the year. So Het Heru, she governs, Miminida, Saturday on the feminine side and so forth. This particular year is what we would call a Het Heru year, and the different attributes of that divinity coloring different relationships and business relationships and creative innovation and a number of different things that she governs. You'll see her energy touching various things this year in a more prominent way. Now, Now let's get to our article. So we did the portion of the article is on the Odwirafo page, but then we have the link to the actual document. So when you go to the Odwirafo blog site on WordPress, you'll see the portion of the article, but then it takes you to the full article. And you click on that and you'll see it. I will place this in the chat room so you can check that out. Okay. So we put this forward for a number of different reasons. We wanted to show the relationship between Ausar and Het Heru. In the Yoruba tradition, for example, that is Obatala and Oshun. In Vodun, for example, that's Dangbe and Azili or Erzuli and so forth. And of course, in Akan, we talk about Awusi and Ama or Ameminiwa. She's also called Afi or Afia. So we want to show their relationship, how they operate in a certain context through the planet Afi or Venus, as you can see right here. We call the planet Afi. But they also operate through the sacred resins, a part of mineral life. And we talk about the Hoodoo tradition and root work and mineral work and so forth, as well as Juju, as well as Voodoo, as well as the various traditions we preserve in North America here. The sacred resins of HEDJU and ANTIU are governed by these two divinities. As you can see in their coloring and so forth, the sacred color that Ausar has on is white. The sacred color dress that you see Het Heru is wearing is red and so forth. That goes to these sacred resins. The sacred resin of HEDJU, which is the white resin, the sacred resin of ANTIU, which is the red resin. In English, of course, that is frankincense and myrrh, but we go back to the original titles. There's a cosmological relationship between Ausar and Het Heru when they operate through the planet Afi or Venus, and therefore this notion of HEDJU and ANTIU, frankincense and myrrh. It has nothing to do with the Bible, that nonsense. It has nothing to do with the Europeans. It has nothing to do with the Eurasians and so forth, or Arabians. It has to do with our ancient ancestral culture, the different divinities, as they have a balanced relationship through a specific cosmological structure. So let's get into it. Now, as we just said, in this portion, we're just talking about how usually people hear about frankincense and myrrh and they think about the biblical story, which of course is fraudulent. Now, this particular image we're talking about here, that worker, that's from the temple of Hatshepsut in ancient Kamit. And that's one of the temples that we visit when we tour ancient Kamit. So when we go on the tour in June and so forth, that is one of the temples we go to, and you will see this image if you would like to tour with us next June. We can talk about that. We'll post the information at the end of the broadcast. But that temple worker is working with the frankincense and myrrh trees and so forth that were imported from further in East Africa, East Africa, Eritrea, in the regions of Eritrea and so forth, imported into Kamit, planted in the sacred sanctuaries. Now, we're talking about here how let me make sure we can see this. Okay, so the land of Punt or Puanit, of course, most people will hear about that first in the biblical literature, which is, once again, fraudulent. But that sacred land is also called Ta'aku. There were studies done on the isotopes of specific baboons, and they were able to trace where those baboons came from. And they were able, through that process, through molecular biology, to trace where the ancient land of Puanit, that Hatshepsut sent a great entourage and expedition to that sacred land and so forth. It's called Ta'aku, the land of the ancestresses, and ancestors a little bit southeast of Kamit. So it's southern, but also eastern towards the Red Sea, on the borders of the Red Sea. So it's in the region of today's Eritrea. Originally, people just assumed it was Somalia, but it's in the region primarily of Eritrea, but then it goes, further south into, further down into southern portions, Sudan, northeast Ethiopia. At different times, its borders could extend into Somalia, depending on the political structure at the time and so forth. But it's this region in the past and even today where the sacred frankincense and myrrh trees were imported to ancient Kemet. So ANTIU is the term for myrrh in the ancient Kemeti language. It's a reddish color, and then you have the pure HEDJU. HEDJU means white. So the HEDJU resin, or the white resin, is frankincense. It's a whitish color. They talk about how when it's transported and the resin is rubbing against each other, it begins to take on a kind of a soil color initially, and it becomes yellowish, but originally it's a whitish resin, and this is why they call it HEDJU. Now, so that's a descriptive title dealing with red and white. But as we can see here, the functional title of incense in and of itself, and some people would say, well, is incense even African? You see people burning incense, and some people are trying to say that we were imitating Hindus and so forth. But the functional title in the Medutu, in the language of ancient Kemet, of incense is Sa Ntoro. As you can see here, Sa Ntoro. The term Sa, the S, but it's really Sa, is a causative in the language of ancient Kemet. It means to make something, or to do something to make something happen, to cause something to happen. Ntoro means deity. On the masculine side, it's Ntoro, and the feminine side is Ntorot. Many people say Neter or Netert and so forth, but it's Ntoro, Ntorot. In the Akan language, we still say Ntoro and Ntoro and so forth. So Sa Ntoro, Sa Ntoro means to cause or to make. Sa Ntoro, divine, to divinize something, to make something divine, to make it sacred or divine. We take incense and we purify the area and purify our bodies and purify the ritual statuary and so forth. We're quote unquote making it divine by purifying it. It's Sa Ntoro, to cause or make this thing sacred or divine. So that's the functional title of the word incense. In European languages, they say incense. In ancient Kemet, we said Sa Ntoro, to make something. It's an entity that's utilized to make something divine, cause something divine, to be divine. So, and this is what we say here. When the Abosom, the deity, the Ntoru, Ntoru2, are invoked ritually, and the smoke of the resins are directed towards the ritual statues, shrines, individuals, and so forth. It is purificatory. Moreover, when spirit alighting occurs, the smoke will respond to the form of the spirit, which is manifested in the space. And of course, when you see the smoke rising from, the Sa Ntoro, the incense and so forth, the smoke rising is akin to the spirit rising up from the body, whether it's through spirit possession or spirit taking leave and so forth. So, but that smoke will take the form of the entity that's operating within the ritual space. So the Sa Ntoro, the incense, gives an energetic body to the spirit of an ancestor, ancestress, or divinity in ritual for us to temporarily see and interface with. Now, Now here we have, and let's just show another. We're going to show another representation of this as we're talking about it. Talk about the 4 sacred elements of fire, water, earth, and air: Oja, Nsuo, Asase, and Mframa. But just so you can see what we're talking about. On one of our 38 online courses, this is a flyer for that, but we just want you to see the elemental structure. So in part 5 of our Hoodoo series online course, it's called Insane Elemental Asceticism in the Hoodoo Tradition. When we talk about the ascetic tradition in Hoodoo, many people assume that asceticism comes from the Hindus or other Asians and so forth. They learned about the ascetic tradition, where we're talking about self-discipline, purification, fasting, meditation, and all that, from the ancient priestesses and priests of ancient Kamit, the Himat Ntoro, and so forth, the Him Ntoro, the wife of the god and the great, chief of the priests and priestesses, and the chieftainess of the priests and priestesses and so forth. Purify ourselves on a consistent basis. We would shave our heads and so forth. We're wearing white, Sat and Toro. We're divinizing ourselves or purifying ourselves with the sacred resins and all of that. Going into the shrine houses, engaging in divination. All of these things Europeans learned about by seeing the priests and priestesses of ancient Kemet. They tried to replicate that in the Eastern Orthodox Church, or the early church fathers and so forth, who were quote unquote ascetics. But of course, they were dealing with fake doctrine, so the asceticism didn't matter. Those in Hinduism and Buddhism and so forth, Eurasians learned about the ascetic tradition from our people. So, but there's an elemental aspect to that ascetic discipline. So we talk about earth, and we talk about fasting and different things, and the air, dealing with meditation and purification, and the air element, all these different things dealing with the elemental totems. Now, let's switch back to the article. Okay, so when you see plant life, animal life, and mineral life, these are shrines which resonate at the frequency of the abosom, provoking the energy of animal totems, plant totems, mineral totems, as well as human totems and so forth. So when we're talking about, we often hear about animal totems, which we call achinebois in the Akan tradition. You have a lion or a hawk, falcon, certain animals that carry the energy of specific divinities. So they are a messenger for those specific divinities. You have a fiery divinity like Heru, Shango, Yao, Hevioso, the same divinity in different cultures and so forth. That sacred falcon or a hawk and so forth carries the energy of that divinity. So he will send that hawk or falcon to people who are his children and so forth as a message, an energetic force to communicate with, to replenish our energy and so forth. That's an animal totem. So every animal that exists falls up under the category of one or more divinities. But the same thing is true of plant totems. So you have plants that are sacred to different abosom, plants sacred to different Orisha, plants sacred to different Vodou and so forth. Fiery plants and so forth, those are the cool and watery. Different kinds of plant life carry different energy complexes, and they are categorized according to the divinity that governs them. The same is true, of course, with Afurakani human beings. We are totems, human totems for certain divinities. The abosom or Orisha that governs the head is the divinity, and we are the human totem for that divinity. So if you're Okomfo or an Abosomfo in the Akan tradition, a certain kind of priest or priestess, or an Olorisha in Yoruba, or a voodoo queen in the voodoo tradition and so forth. You get possessed by the divinities. You bring that energy into your community to heal, to bring restoration, recalibration, realignment, admonishment, and so forth, divine order. This is what's happening. You are the human totem. And of course, only Afurakani people can be a human totem. But we also have mineral totems. Different aspects of earth, whether it's yellow ochre or yellow iron ore, red iron ore, charcoal, kaolin, all these different aspects of mineral life. The different colors carry different energy complex, the different kinds of substance that they have, whether it's, soft mineral, hard, whatever the texture is, diamonds and so forth, emeralds. You also have mineral life, which is, gold, silver, iron, copper, different aspects of mineral life. Each one carries the energy of a specific divinity, a specific abosom, orisha, voodoo, and so forth. So we have mineral totems, just like we have plant totems, just like we have animal totems, and we as Afurakani people are the human totems. Now, so let's scroll back down. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to understand, that there are mineral totems. Then we can get into these sacred titles of Het Heru and Ausar. Het Heru is called the Lady of Myrrh, the sacred Lady of ANTIU, which is myrrh. And then Ausar is the one of the white resin, the HEDJU and so forth. So let's look at how that's spelled in the Medutu so you can see what it's looking like. In fact, let's scroll down to that real quick. So as you can see here, this is Ant or ANTIU, that is myrrh. But you also have Ant or ANTIU is a title, and then you see the determinative symbol of the great vulture. As you see, this is the determinative symbol of the great vulture. But that same vulture as Nkoso, which they say Nesi or Nesot. They spell it different ways, but it's Nkoso. That's true in Akan as well as ancient Kamit and so forth. That is the title of the Sudani or the Nubitu or Nubian version or expression of Het Heru. So she's called the Lady of Myrrh or the Lady of ANTIU in various texts in ancient Kamit, but even in the Sudan, in ancient Nubia, she's called Nkoso, and that title ANTIU shows that her sacred vulture is the sacred symbol. She has a sacred title and animal totem in ancient Kamit. You'll see in Yoruba, for example, Oshun is also called Oshun Ikole, and Ikole, that's a version of Oshun and so forth. That is Oshun in the form of a sacred vulture. So that's a sacred animal totem for her in Yoruba culture as well as ancient Khanit and Kamit. But let's go back down a little bit further. Now, in the Medutu, you'll see we have different from the Vigas dictionary. People who study the Medutu know about the Vigas dictionary. The other entries are from Budge's dictionary, but two different versions of the same information. But so you see Hetchet, Hedge or Hedjet, singular, Hedju, plural. In the dictionaries now, they'll put the D with the line under it, but that's the J. Just sound like DJ or TCH, Cha. So it's Hedju, a resin from Punt or Puanit, which is Eritrea. Hetchet, the white crown that you see Ausar wearing typically. HEDJU, a plant with white leaves or flowers. HEDJU, the white crown of the south. HEDJU, white linen, and so forth. So HEDJ means white. HEDJ with the determinative symbol of little grains and so forth means the white grains or the white mineral. That is the white resin. That is frankincense. Now let's go back up. Now we talked about Het Heru previously. Let me give you we're going to go back to this article on Het Heru so you can see what we're referencing. We talk about Het Heru as governing the central energy that's the precursor to procreative activity, sexual activity, and the replenishment of its harmony. Now, this is a form of Het Heru. And as we said, she operates through the planet Afi, or Venus, which we're talking about tonight, but she also is the feminine aspect of the planet Amini, so-called Saturn. Now we say Afi when she's operating through Afi, the planet Afi. Europeans call it Venus. We call it Afi or Afia. Also Afuia or Afua. So when you hear Afua, that means a female born on Friday, or Fida, the day of the planet Afi and the divinity Afi. She's the abosom, the divinity of the Ochin, the planet Afi, so-called Venus. Her day is Fida, Friday. She's referred to as a wanderer, traveler, adventurous, innovative, creative. Afi is the abosom who governs the sensual attraction, that magnetism, which is the precursor to sexual activity, procreative activity, and that which replenishes its harmony. We say pleasure in parentheses because pleasure is the replenishment of divine harmony in the true sense. Now, you can have conditioned responses to different things and even things that are not good for you. Someone can smoke cigarettes and become very sick and start coughing and so forth. But if you keep forcing that poison in your system, then you develop a false attraction to it called an addiction. And then you begin to crave that. That's not natural. That's your body creating an artificial attraction to something that normally your body would repel. That's not real pleasure. That's corruption. That's an addiction. But pleasure is the replenishment of divine harmony. And divine harmony is an expression of divine order. So if you're interacting in harmony with an individual, entity, or event, then that's a manifestation of harmony, when you're operating in divine order. If you get off track, you make mistakes, and you engage the ritual process to get back on track so you can realign your thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order, and you can get back in harmony with divine order, that replenishment of harmony, or getting back in harmony with divine order, is the manifestation of quote unquote pleasure. So Afi is talking about restoration of harmony, replenishing harmony, meaning divine order. That's quote unquote pleasure. So we're not just talking about a central attraction or an artificial attraction to a certain individual, entity, event, and so forth. We're always talking about divine order when we talk about these deities. So she is the central attraction, or she governs the central attraction that is the precursor to sexual activity, procreative activity, and the replenishment of its harmony. So that magnetism that we have as we're drawn together as Afurakani men and Afurakani women. And of course, it's only between Afurakani men, Afurakani women. Het Heru draws us together because we are naturally complementary opposites. The whites and offspring are not our complements. They are a perversion of our people, but they are not complementary to us. The complement of a black man is a black woman. The complement of a black woman is a black man. The white male, the white female, they are corruptions of the original. You can have a pot on a potter's wheel and so forth. That's a naturally formed artistic vase and so forth. It went from unformed matter, clay, to formed matter, a nice formed, structure. It went from unformed to formed, uncreated to created, unordered to order. Now, if somebody came and busted up the pot, that's not the balance. The broken pot is not the balance of the, structure. It's the perversion of the pot. The complement is the unformed to the formed, the uncreated to the created, the unordered to the order. The broken pot is a perversion or disorder, which is the perversion of the order. The disorder is never the balance. The balance of a healthy cell is not a cancerous cell. That's a perversion of a healthy cell. The balance of the black man is the black woman. The white woman is not the balance of the black man. That's a perversion of a woman. It's not a real, true woman. Only true woman is the Afro-Khanit woman, African black woman, and she is the balance or complementary opposite of the Afro-Khanit African black man. The whites and their offspring are perversions of the original, but they are not the balance of the original. So Het Heru will never fuse together any human beings except for the original, the Afro-Khanit man, Afro-Khanit woman, and us in complementary balance. Never dissexuality, homosexuality. She will never fuse together perversity, insanity. Dissexuality, homosexuality is insanity, mental illness, and so forth. Spiritual discordance. Those are not complementary opposites, two males or two females. That's insane. Of course, people outside of their natural age groupings and so forth, that is not complementary balance either. Of course, incest and all the kinds of nonsense, or even, older men trying to go after somebody 60 years old, trying to chase after a 25-year-old and so forth. The energy complex is discordant. It's imbalanced. Lust is not part of this process. Lust is the perversion of love, just like malice is the perversion of hate. Love and hate are divine. Lust and malice are perversions. So she will only fuse together the Afro-Khanit man, Afro-Khanit woman in complementary balance. Now, she governs the divine reproductive system, the procreative creative structure within Abadiye creation, the body of Nyame wa Nyame, which is the supreme being, and thus the reproductive system in the body and so forth. So we show a number of different things with regard to her, and of course, these sacred sculptures, the sacred pre-dynastic sculptures in ancient Kamit are representative of the fallopian tubes, which are governed by Het Heru. When you look at the fallopian tubes, you'll see that's where the sperm and ovum fuse together and form the zygote and so forth within the structure of Het Heru and so forth. So you'll even see that the sacred falcon inside of the Het. So he's hair, or she's hair, the sacred falcon. The structure, the triangular or rectangular structure, square structure, is the Het, or the house. That's the house Het of hair, the falcon. When you look at the fallopian tube, what you're looking at, hold on a second. When you look at the fallopian tube, it is the house, or the Het, and the little falcon, the little spirit, the returning spirit, is the ancestor or ancestress who gets into the womb of the mother. Once the sperm and ovum unite, the ancestral spirit takes up a residence in that zygote. Then it leaves the fallopian tube structure and goes into the uterus structure, which is governed by Auset or Ajua, Minona and Vodun, and so forth. And then eventually the child gestates and is born, and so forth. So let's just switch back to the article. So this is what we're saying about Het Heru in the article, just some more detailed information about her. So as you can see here, we say Het Heru only fuses together complementary opposites in harmony with divine order, as we just said, not deviations from order. The fallopian tube, as we said, is the structure of Het Heru, is the Het Heru, the house of Heru, the house of the falcon, and so forth. Externally, she governs the vulva, and it's called the Lady of the Vulva. Now, then we get to Ausar. He has a regulatory function in creation, regulates the functions of other divinities in creation. He establishes order within creation. So we talk about Ausar in the context, and let us pull up our Akradim Bosom book real quick. We show the sacred symbolism of Ausar, and we're gonna give you that real quick. In our book on the Akradim Bosom, Volume 2, we're talking about the deities that govern the 7 days of the week. And in this volume, we talk about Ausar, which is Awusi. Awusi and Akan. Now, we talk about Ausar governing the endocrine system. And the endocrine system is a system of ductless glands and so forth. And the master gland of the endocrine system is the pituitary gland. It's the master gland in the body. The pineal is supportive to the pituitary, but the pituitary is the master gland of the body. It sends, chemical directives through secretions that sends directives to the various organs and glands and regulates their functions in our body. So it has a regulatory function. That pituitary gland is right up in the brain region and so forth. It's the same area of the quote unquote third eye area, along with the pineal and so forth. So when you see in the Akan tradition, you see the chair, the gua and so forth, and then you have the eye inside of the seat, the sacred seat. It's representative of the one who has the insight to regulate order in society. It's a symbol of the divinity Ausar, who's the king and so forth, who regulates order, who gives directives to regulate divine order within society, just like the pituitary gland sits in the head region, the high region, his highness and so forth, in the heavenly region of the body, and sends directives to the earthly region to regulate order within the body. Now, so we give a number of different definitions within the Akan language. And then we show that the name spelled in ancient Khanit and Kamit is a seat. This is the throne right here. And it's spelled with the throne and the symbol of the eye. These are three different spellings. The throne on top, the eye up under the throne. That's as-ari or asari. The as or asi. And then the eye is ari, asi, ari or asari. And then you have the seat here and the eye and the kneeling mummified figure, which represents a divinity. Asari in the Coptic dialect is usiri, and so forth, or usiri, awusiri, and Akan is awusi, and so forth. But you have the seat and the eye. The seat is the center of governance and the insight that comes from, the accumulated wisdom of a million generations of earthly experience that we have with our ancestral community, as well as the divinity who has the circumspect sight to regulate order in the entire domain. So Ausar's name is spelled with a seat and an I in ancient Kamit. That's how you spell his name. And then when you go to the Akan tradition, you find in the Adinkra symbolism, you find the seat with the eye. Of course, they have the eyelashes and so forth. The eye associated with the sacred seat. And just to go down a little bit further, when you see if you're not familiar with the sacred Gwa in Akan culture, let's pull that up right quick. That symbol is representative of this sacred seat, the seat of authority and so forth. Everyone has a seat like that in their home. But then, of course, the Oheni, the king, and Ohema, the queen mother, have their own sacred Gwa, that seat. So that's the seat that you see in the Adinkra symbolism with the eye coming out of it. This is what it's representing. So whether it's in Akan culture, the seat of authority that has the all-seeing eye and so forth, that can see every aspect of the domain and make proper decisions inside your body, the pineal gland or the pituitary gland, along with the pineal, but the pituitary is the master gland that sits in the heavenly region that regulates order, has a regulatory function. This is what we're talking about when we talk about the function of Awusi, a regulatory function that regulates the functions of other glands. Awusi or Ausar or Batala Dangbe has a regulatory function. This is why they call him the chief of the Abosom, the chief of the Orisha, the chief of the Vodou, and so forth. He has a regulatory function that regulates the functions of other divinities in a harmonious way. So if you look at the different glands and organs in your body as the deities incarnate, the Orisha, the Abosom, the Vodou, and so forth, and then you are the great being, in the same fashion, the great mother and father supreme being, within their body are organs, which are the forces in nature. One of those organs is the pituitary structure within the great divine body that is governed by Awusi or Ausar, and he regulates the functions of the different organs in the great divine body of creation. Now, so let's switch back. So that's why we say Ausar has a regulatory function in creation. He regulates the functions of other Abosom deities in creation. He establishes order in the functioning of creation. The physical shrine of Ausar is the pituitary gland, master gland, and so forth. This is why we're talking about that. Now, the pituitary gland, we talked about, that's the shrine of Awusi in the body. We said the fallopian tubes and so forth, the reproductive system, is the shrine of Het Heru in the body. The house, the het of hair, the falcon, the fallopian tube structure, and the sacred, unified sperm and ovum, the zygote that will take up residence in that house. That's what's happening. Now, what's important is biologically, pituitary gland secretes follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. These gonadotrophic hormones are released by the pituitary gland into the bloodstream. Follicle stimulating hormone is one of the hormones essential to pubertal development and the function of women's ovaries. This is the relationship between Ausar and Het Heru in the body in reference to procreation. So biologically, the union and united functioning of the pituitary, Ausar's shrine, and the reproductive organs, including fallopian tubes and the release of the follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone and so forth, Ausar and Het Heru work together in the body biologically. Their two shrines work together. Now, you look at the cosmology of ancient Kamit, and if you look, for example, in the so-called Chester Beatty Papyrus, it says Ausar in the cosmology was killed and cut up into a number of pieces. However, Auset worked to reconstitute the body of Ausar. It's important to note that when people are recounting the story of Ausar's body getting cut up into a number of different pieces, sometimes they will say it's 14 pieces. That's a late period description. The Greeks associating Ausar with the moon and so forth. And of course, he is connected to the moon. But when they say 14 pieces, they were thinking about the 14 days of the moon and so forth. When you look at older texts, you will see Ausar's body was cut up into 16 pieces. And then the 16 pieces were brought back together to unite. This is why you have all over ancient Africa, various forms of what people call 16 symbol divination. You have cowrie shells or other kinds of seeds and so forth, 16 of them that are cast, or 16, strokes or signs in the sand and so forth, or the soil, 16 symbol divination. The body of Ausar is broken up into 16 pieces, then they're gathered back together. You get the cowrie shells in your hand, you cast them, broken up into 16 pieces, like Erin di Logun in the Yoruba tradition, the 16 cowries and so forth, or the 16 ikin or palm nuts in the Yoruba tradition and so forth. But then you pull those pieces back together in a united whole so you can see what's going on in the spirit realm when you're doing divination for somebody. This is where the 16 pieces comes from. So in the older texts, Middle Empire and so forth, Ausar's body was cut up into 16 pieces, and every place that pieces of his body were found, there was a shrine established and so forth. All 16 pieces were brought back together. The Greeks put forth this false notion that the phallus of Ausar was thrown in the river and consumed, and then Auset had to make an artificial phallus. That's all total misinformation. There's a story from the Middle Empire called the Tale of the Two Brothers Anpu and Bata. And the younger brother, his phallus was cut and thrown in the river and swallowed by a fish. And this is where they get that story of the phallus of Ausar being cut off and thrown into the water and, consumed by a fish. But that has to do with a different story, a cosmological story, but that does not have to do with Ausar. So the Greeks put that forward, and then a lot of our people began to repeat that, and then come up with misinformation about. You hear people talking about the 13, stripes on the flag in America and the 13 original colonies, and that represented the 13 pieces of Ausar's body, and the 14th piece was missing, and that was the phallic symbol. None of that is accurate. His body wasn't cut up into 14 pieces, it was cut up into 16. You can see that in the actual text. And we did a series on Ausar and 16 symbol divination and so forth, where we went into detail about that. So, but that's where that misinformation comes from. No, now. In the cosmology, Set found the various pieces of his body, pulled them back together. His spirit came to her. They came together as two spirits. She was impregnated. She eventually gives birth to the deity Heru and so forth. Heru grows up to defeat Set and his followers and all of that. Now, and when we look at Ausar's son Heru and Auset's son Heru, you'll see the white and the red crown, and he unites the white and the red. The white crown is the crown of southern Kamit that goes down into Nubia. The red crown represents northern Kamit and so forth. He unified the two lands after they were separated because of division and so forth. Once Heru took over and became king again and so forth, he unified the south and the north. And the representation of that is the unification of the white crown of the south and the red crown of the north. And you see he has unified the two crowns. Now, what you also see here is that the white crown is penetrating the red crown. So you have that white, which represents in this context the seminal fluid that will carry the sperm cell that has that Y chromosomal DNA and so forth, connected to the patriclan divinity. And then you have the red crown, which receives, that's the feminine aspect. It's the blood of the mother, the menstrual blood, but also the ovulatory blood that carries the ovum, which is animated by the energy of the matriclan divinity and so forth. So the white crown penetrates the red, the white seminal fluid fuses with the red ovulatory blood, the sperm cell and ovum cell are therefore able to fuse together and so forth. That is a union of the white and the red on different levels. Now, we said the magnetic attraction of the Afro-Akani African man and Afro-Akani African woman, which leads to marriage, copulation, conception, gestation, and ultimately the birth of a returned ancestor or ancestress, is mediated by the major shrine of Het Heru in nature. And that major shrine of Het Heru in nature is the planet Wau-T. That's one of the titles of the planet Venus in ancient Kamit. We say while the Ntoro, the god Min, is the major male deity governing the masculine aspect of Wau-T, there's a specific role within this planetary shrine in nature for Ausar. So, when you look at the deity Min, you look at the central nervous system and so forth, he's connected to that. And through the central nervous system, the deity Min is the husband of Min Minit or Het Heru. But you have the central nervous system, the brain and spinal column and so forth, that's connected to Het Heru in the context of, the reproductive system. But then, as we said before, the endocrine system, which is governed by Ausar, there is a relationship between the pituitary gland, endocrine system, and the reproductive system as well. So Ausar and Het Heru work together, endocrine system, reproductive system. But Min, the deity Min or Min, the central nervous system, also works with Het Heru. In this context, we want to focus on the relationship between Ausar and Het Heru. So you see, Siu means a star. Wau-T, a name of Het Heru. Siu Wau-T, the star of Wau-T, the planet Venus as a morning star. So now we have the title, a functional title of the planet Afi or Venus, Wau-T. It's the star of the morning. But you also have this title of Ausar, Cha Benu Ausar. That means the traveling Benu of Ausar, or sacred vessel of Ausar. That is a title of the star or the planet Venus as well. Then you have Sabah Cha, the star Cha, the planet Venus, other names and so forth. So in the text of Kamit, and we had to prove this because some people were assuming, once again, that Frankincense and Myrrh come from the Europeans, Eurasians. We're showing that Het Heru is called Wau-T. That's the planet Venus. She operates with the planet Venus. But then Ausar is called Cha Benu Ausar when he's operating through the planet Venus as well. So his spiritual force can possess the planet Venus. Het Heru's spiritual force can possess the planet Venus. Now there are two entities operating in the same vessel for a specific purpose. Just like you driving a car and you can have somebody come and get in the passenger seat and they can direct you as to where you need to go. Two individuals operating in the same vessel, moving in a certain direction. Just like there are many divinities on earth. You have Abosom, deities of the ocean, deities of the earth, deities of the atmosphere. There are multiple divinities operating within this one vessel. There are two major divinities in this context operating and possessing the planet Wau-T or Venus, that is Het Heru and Ausar. Okay. So the vessel Cha of the Benu Ausar, as well as the vessel of the Aku, the spirit of Ausar, and so forth. So these are just titles of the planet as a vessel and a shrine. So when you see the sacred red and white hues of ANTIU and HEDJU, Myrrh, and Frankincense, now we have established, one, there's a biological relationship between Ausar and Het Heru. There's a planetary relationship between Ausar and Het Heru. And now we get back to this notion of the resonance. We talked about ANTIU one of the titles of Myrrh in ancient Kamit. ANTIU is also the sacred determinative of the great vulture. We said that earlier. Even with the queen mothers who are wives of, priestesses, the wife of the god and so forth, they wear the vulture headdress, which is governed by Het Heru and Nekabet as well. So the HEDJU resin, we just saw that earlier, the white resin. Now, so we talked about females born on Fida, Friday, or Memenida, the planet Venus, which is Afi, the planet Saturn, which is Amini, or Amimini. They're governed by the divinity Afi, which is Het Heru. When she operates through the planet Saturn, she's called Minminit. And in fact, let's give you the, I'm going to give you the glyphs for that as well that you can research so you can see them for yourself. We did a short article on Het Heru as Minminit, so we'll just pull that up. Okay. So we did this short article on Het Heru. That's another image of Het Heru right here. This is from the temple of Seti and Abju, so-called Abydos. This is Min Nua. So she has different ways to spell it, Min Nua, but also Min Minit. Different spellings in the various spellings in the Medutu and the hieroglyphs. So we say Min Minit is vocalized as Amiminiwa and Akan. Het Heru is vocalized as Chet Che in Akan, so she's called both of those, Min Minit as well as Chet Che. But we just wanted you to see those glyphs. That is Min Minit, and this one is Min Minwa, but you also have Min Minit in the Medutu, the hieroglyphs and so forth. So when you look in the hieroglyphic dictionary, you will find both spellings. So we say Friday-born females take on the Akradin of soul name Afia, Afua. Saturday-born females take on the Akradin Ama, Amit, Amiminiwa, various versions and so forth. But we talk about the ritual use of HEDJU and ANTIU Frankincense and Myrrh. The sacred white and red resins is an invocation of Ausar and Het Heru for harmonious creative development in the context of regulatory order for the expansion of our clans, progeny, and also our activities in the context of Ancestral nation building restoration. So when we talk about a ritual, it's a ritual invocation of Ausar and Het Heru for harmonious creative development in the context of regulatory order. So again, what we're talking about is, and we use the biology for an example, the pituitary gland is not, for example, if your mouth consumes food, it also takes in air and so forth. Of course, your mouth is also used as a way to, release sound vibrations and so forth. But it has specific roles, just like your eardrums and so forth have specific roles to process that sound, as well as the inner ear for balance and so forth. But you have certain organs that have a regulatory function, meaning that their function is to regulate the functions of other glands and organs. They have an administrative function. They have a supervisory function. You look at the endocrine system, headed up by the pituitary gland. That's an administrative function. It has to do with regulatory order. When you look at the fallopian tubes and the energy emitted, that has to do with the regulatory order of bringing an ancestral spirit into the world. To draw an ancestral spirit from the spirit realm, pull it into the world, into the fallopian tubes first. When the sperm and ovum unite, pull that spirit in, and then send it to the uterus, where Auset will take it. Auset, HEDJU, and so forth will take that divinity or take that individual and begin to nurture that individual. But you have the fallopian tubes that have a regulatory function. You have the pituitary gland that has a regulatory function in creation. Ausar, Awusi, Obatala, Dangbe, and so forth have a regulatory function in creation. Het Heru, she regulates the central attraction. That's the precursor to procreative activity. So she fuses together complementary opposites, not just for men and women to have children and so forth, but she fuses together complementary opposites. She will fuse together things that are different. For example, different sounds, fuse them together in a complementary fashion. And those sounds, once fused together, will create music, harmonious music. She'll fuse together different shapes and colors in a harmonious fashion. That's the generation of paintings and artistic work and so forth. She'll fuse together a number of different things that are different externally, fuse them together, and that's artistic, creation. She'll fuse together different elements that has to do with scientific innovation. She'll fuse together different plant life, animal life, mineral life in a harmonious fashion. If someone is sick and you don't know exactly what herbs or plants to use to heal them, you invoke the divinity who can fuse together different herbs in a harmonious, complementary fashion, not a discordant fashion. For example, you need a male and a female, of course, to come together in a harmonious fashion for the woman to become pregnant and for someone to be born into the world. Obviously, you can't have a male and a male or a female and a female. You have to fuse together complementary opposites. If someone is ill, you can't just fuse together any plant with any other plant, herb, or mineral, and so forth. You have to fuse together that which is necessary to restore a harmony in that individual. Who is the individual? What force in creation that you can invoke that can show you how to fuse together certain plant life, animal life, mineral life in a specific harmonious combination that will address the specific issue to heal the individual? Het Heru is participating in any real healing effort. So there are a number of different, aspects of that energy that affects every aspect of the world. Now, so when we're talking about regulatory order, the union of Ausar and Het Heru, that's the fusion of two entities that regulate order within not just, bringing people into the world, copulation and so forth, but also within our nation as an Afro-Akani people. How do you fuse together different rules, different administrative rules, procedural rules, substantive rules, and so forth, so you can have a harmonious governing structure so that when we live together and function together and build together and so forth, we have a system of governance and jurisprudence that's harmonious, where people are not killing each other or overrunning each other or misusing each other and so forth. And if there are disputes, they can be addressed in a harmonious fashion so the whole nation isn't destroyed and so forth. If things come into the nation from the outside, how do we deal with that effectively? How do you fuse together different ideas, different energy complexes of different people so you can have a harmonious society? When we talk about the replenishment of harmony with regard to Het Heru, that also has to do with the replenishment of harmony between groups of people, specifically our people only, of course, Afro-Akani people. Ausar establishes that order. Auset, of course, perpetuates that order. Het Heru has the creative capacity to pull together complementary opposites in a harmonious fashion for governance, for scientific invention, for health, for creative endeavors, and so forth, all across the board. So, Okay, so that's what we say. Every ritual practice we engage in as Afro-Akani people is founded upon our direct experience with the Abosom, the deities, and that's true of all of our various expressions, hoodoo, juju, voodoo, wanga, and so forth, all these different things. But we talked about the context, harmonious creative development in the context of regulatory order for the expansion of our clans, progeny, and also our activities in the context of Ama Ancestral nation building restoration. So that's the information we wanted to share. We want to show you biologically where do Ausar and Het Heru reside in the body. Spiritually, where do they reside? What is their function in creation beyond the creation of a human being, but also the creation of rules, creation of governments, creation of scientific innovations, creation of creative endeavors, and so forth. So when we burn these white and red resins and we combine the white resin and the red resin, the HEDJU and the ANTIU and so forth, we're invoking the spiritual force of Ausar, Awusi, Dangbe, Obatala, Agwu, as he's called in the Igbo tradition. And we're also invoking Het Heru, who's called Miminit. We call her Afi. We also call her Oshun and Erzuli and so forth, and the various expressions that you find her in different Afro-Akani cultures. But we're invoking these divinities. We're stimulating their shrines in our bodies. When we utilize this incense, we're not only purifying ourselves, but we're realigning ourselves with their roles in creation. When we sa ntoro, make or cause sa ourselves to be divinized or purified, a purificatory function, ritual function, and so forth, we're invoking these divinities for regulatory order in our individual lives as well as the lives in our clans. So when you read through that article, you have a better understanding of the role of Het Heru and Ausar. And when you see these different people who are children of these different divinities, you can see how they work together. So, okay, so that's the information I wanted to share. If you have any questions, of course, you can post something in the chat room. Also have a couple of links I want to put out there. Hold on 1 second. Let me just okay, so one of the things that are coming up, let me see if this pops up. Okay, so we are releasing and screening our second documentary film. And the virtual screening is going to be on Monday, October 9th. This is the very first screening of our new film, Hoodoo, Akan, Ancestral Religion in North America. We're showing that the Akan tradition brought from Ghana and Ivory Coast in our ancestral blood circles was preserved as Hoodoo in North America. We also show that the Akan people come from ancient Khan, or the Khan land, ancient Khanit, Nubia, the same terms you find in ancient Khanit and Nubia in the Medutu, like the term Undu, which became Hoodoo, the term Haint, which is a Haint spirit and so forth, the term Kanche or Kanja, which comes from Kanche, the Akan language, and Ka-che in ancient Kamit and so forth, Mojo, Jackball, all these different things that are Hoodoo expressions are all Akan terms based on Akan cosmology and can all be traced to ancient Khanit and Kamit as well. We left ancient Khanit and Kamit, Nubia and Egypt, migrated west, established ourselves a couple of thousand years ago in the ancient empire of Akana or Ghana. About 1,000 years later, some Muslim invasions took place and some of us moved further south towards the forest belt where Ghana and Ivory Coast are now. And then hundreds of years after that, some of us were taken from there and forced into the Western Hemisphere during the enslavement era. So this is how we came from ancient Khanit and Kemet to West Africa into North America. But we maintain the very same ancestral religious tradition. So we prove that Hoodoo is the Akan religion in North America, Akan ancestral religion. It's derived from ancient Khanit and Kemet, but preserved in the blood circles of Black people in North America. So that virtual screening is Monday, 8 p.m. It's going to be here on YouTube, but you have to purchase a ticket. We'll give you a special link. This is exclusive for our followers, our subscribers. So that's coming up Monday. So if you'd like to buy tickets, let me put the link in the chat room. That's our Kanche Films website. And then I'll give you the direct link. When you click on the link, you'll see this. Okay, so when you click on this link we just put in the chat room, that is the Eventbrite page for the tickets on Eventbrite. You'll see that $11.11. With taxes, it's $13.31. So, but that's the price for our new film. This is a film we've been working on for the past couple of years and so forth, and we finally are finishing. So you all will be, our subscribers will be the first ones to be able to see the film. That is this Monday. That's going to be one virtual screening. Then after the virtual screening, we're going to go to different cities and screen the film in person, and people come out and so forth. The first city that we go to will be Atlanta. That is going to be October 14th, which is next Saturday in Atlanta. Let me give you the link for that. Okay, so what you see here is our Hoodoo MAYN, Hoodoo Nation Festival page. Now, this will be our 9th annual Hoodoo MAYN, Hoodoo Nation Festival. Hoodoo, MAYN and Akan means nation, so the Hoodoo MAYN means the Hoodoo Nation. Every October and mid-October, we have our Hoodoo MAYN, Hoodoo Nation Festival. It is a celebration of Akan ancestral religion that we preserved in our blood circles in North America. So we have different presenters talking about different aspects of the Akan tradition, which is Hoodoo in North America specifically. So in this particular conference, we wouldn't have an Akan priest or priestess from Ghana coming to speak on Akan religion. We will only have an Akan priest or priestess or a Hoodoo man, Hoodoo woman, and so forth, preserved Akan ancestral religion in North America for the past 300 plus years. So this is specifically for our people who have preserved our traditions in our blood circles in North America. So this is our 9th annual Hoodoo MAYN, Hoodoo Nation Festival. We typically have them in Washington, D.C. We have vendors, all-day event. We have different presentations and so forth. A couple of times because of the COVID issue, we had, a live streamed event, via Zoom and so forth. This year, this is the first time we're going to have it outside of Washington, D.C. It will be in Atlanta. Because it's a special occasion, we will be, and we'll just scroll down and you'll see the portion of the flyer. So as you can see here, that's the exclusive. So what we're going to be doing in Atlanta next weekend is we will be screening the film for the first time in person. So with the registration fee is $24. You get the film screening. You also get a vegan dinner, and we will have a panel discussion after the film screening with a number of people who practice the Hoodoo tradition. So that's what's going on in Atlanta. So if you have if you are in the Atlanta area, you want to travel to the Atlanta area and so forth, let me put did I put the link in here? Okay, So that's the Hoodoo Mind Hoodoo Nation Festival link, and you'll see that in the description box for this video also. So you can go and get your tickets there. Of course, our Hoodoo Mind Festival, as well as all of our festivals and conferences that we have every year. We have 3 conferences every year. Hoodoo Mind Festival in October, HEDJU Sign Conference in March around the spring equinox, dealing with the various ancestral religious traditions in North America. Hoodoo is Akan, Voodoo is the Ewe tradition, Juju is the Yoruba tradition, Wanga is the Ovambo tradition, and Gengan is the Fang tradition. Gala and Geechee is the Golden Kisi tradition. So various people speaking on different traditions we preserved in North America. That's the HEDJU Sign Conference in March. And here in October is specifically the Akan tradition, the Hoodoo tradition, but in March, we have the various traditions represented by different people. And in June, around the summer solstice, we have the Ojira Mind Conference. We're dealing with nation building, restoration, rooted in our ancestral religious values. So we have different people talking about the different aspects, principal values of nation building, and how they are working on those different aspects of nation building tangibly in their very communities. So, so we have those 3 conferences per year. Always registration, and it's always open to Afro-Akani, Afro-Akaini, African Black people only, of course. Same is true with our Hoodoo Mind Festival in Atlanta. You have to register, purchase the ticket, but you also have to register. And we do that, of course. We don't allow non-Black people in our conferences. So, okay, so question in the chat room. So Heru is the male divinity operating through the planet. The planetary home of Heru is the planet Yao, which is the planet Jupiter and so forth. Het Heru is the feminine divinity. So, for example, in the Yoruba tradition, Het Heru is Oshun, and Heru is Shango. In Akan, Het Heru is Afi, Afia, Afua, but also Ameminiwa. Heru is Yao, the divinity Yao. So, 2 different divinities. Even if you look in the shrines in the body, Heru governs the heart and cardiovascular system. Het Heru governs the fallopian tubes and so forth, and the reproductive structure, but specifically the fallopian tubes. So those are the 2 different structures in the body. They carry 2 different energy complexes. They are the 2 different shrines of these 2 different divinities in the body. Okay. So now, and Het Heru, let's just point this out real quick. We did a specific book on this. Most people have not seen this information. So this is in Yonkumpon and Yonkunton, who are the Akan names for the divinities Ra and Ra'et. Many people have never seen Ra'et before, but of course that is Ra'et. Now, Het Heru is the daughter of Ra and Ra'et. So you'll see some texts. Sometimes they will see the headdress, the crown, the crown, the horns with the solar disc in between the horns. Different female divinities will wear that crown sometimes. Very often it's Het Heru. But Auset wears that crown sometimes. But Ra'et wears the crown as well. If someone saw this image and they saw her in the crown, the cow's horns with the solar disc, and of course the vulture headdress, they would assume that that was Het Heru. So you have a number of different books that would assume that's Het Heru, or sometimes they will say Het Heru is born of Nut and so forth. But they will talk about Ra being born of Nut as well. Nut is the atmosphere surrounding the planet Earth. So when solar energy penetrates the planet Earth, it can be born through the planet Earth. So the solar energy on Earth is born through the sky and so forth. But in reality, the solar orb, of course, is 93 million miles away. So Ra and Ra'et operate through our sun, as well as the various suns, moons, and various stars and so forth. Of course, they operate through all things, but their major power plants are the stars, which of course includes our sun. So Ra and Ra'et are the father and mother of Het Heru. Okay. So yes, one of the places that we will be screening the film, we're going to have a list of different cities, and we're going to build that list, over the coming weeks. We will be going back to Las Vegas to screen the film. Maybe at the place that we presented in Las Vegas before. We will come to Los Angeles. The last time we were in Los Angeles was when we were screening our first film, Marukafo Adibisa, African American Ancestral Divination. We were actually at a film festival in Los Angeles, the Pembroke Taparelli Art and Film Festival. There's a sister named Andrea Michelle who curates that event. So, and it's possible, we'll see. I don't know if she's going to do it this year. If she does, it's possible we could go out there for that. But in any event, whether we go out there for that, or if we or not for that, if we go for that particular event, we'll be out there for that. But if not, we're still going to go to Los Angeles. We're going to go to the major cities as well as some smaller cities to have in-person events where we screen the film in different venues. But the first virtual screening is Monday. So if you want to see the film, you can't make it to Atlanta, you don't want to wait until we get to your city and so forth, because we'll have one screening virtually on Monday night. Once you all see that, then that link will be removed. Then we'll be going from city to screen the film. And then in the months from now, like in January, February, and so forth, after some of the film festivals and the different things that we've done, then the film will be available, like either Amazon or Vimeo and so forth. But first, we'll be going, from city to city. So if you want to see the film prior to that, Monday will be the virtual screening. You can purchase your ticket now. Go to the link now on Eventbrite. You can purchase your ticket. On Monday during the day, we're going to send out the private link. People will check out the film. We're going to have a panel, well, not a panel, but a discussion after the film on Monday night. We're going to come back live on YouTube to discuss it. And then we're going to take that link down. And then we'll go to Atlanta and go to the next, various cities. Now, I just also want to show you this as well. That image that you just saw of Ra'et, that is in the temple of Khensu. Sometimes they would say Khonsu and so forth. You have Amen, Mut, and Khensu, which is a triad, the great divinity Amen, the great mother Mut, and the son Khensu. Khensu Neferhetep Heru, who operates through the moon and so forth. And of course, Khensu is where they got Jesu and Yesu and Yeshua and Jesus, and they corrupted the name into the fictional cartoon character Jesus and so forth. Khensu is one falcon divinity. Heru, son of Ausar and Het, is a different falcon divinity and so forth, but they combine those two. But that temple of Khensu, there's a smaller chapel inside that temple complex. It's within the precinct of Mut, in the Apet Asediu, so-called Karnak. And that image of Ra'et you just saw is inside the temple of Khonsu or Khensu, but that temple is closed for renovation. It's been closed for a number of years, but we were able to get, and we have to pay for this, a special permit to be able to go into that temple and see the original image of Ra'et. And we got images of that before, and we have that, as part of our collection, the images that we have in ancient Kemet, and we will bring people back in June to see the same thing, but we're going 13 different cities from northern Kemet all the way to southern Kemet and into Khanit, into Nubia. From Cairo, the Meru, so-called pyramids on the Giza Plateau, the pyramid of Teti and so forth, the different tombs in, Apet Reset, which is so-called Luxor, Apet Asediu, which is Karnak, the temple of Seti in Abju, the temple of Het Heru in Dendera, the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut, a number of different places. We're going to the island of Philae. There's a cruise and so forth. We're going to go to Abu Simbel, so-called Abu Simbel, where we cross into Khanit, Nubia. You see this in the background. So that is in June. When you go to our page right here, you'll see these various videos where we took a group last year. You'll see the different places that we went and the places that you will be going. But for example, that special access to the temple where we can see Ra'ed. We've had many people taking tours to Kamit, for years, for decades. And they come back and they teach about ancient Kamit, but they talk about Ra and they talk about Amen, but they've never shown you an image of Ra'et. They've never shown you an image of Amenet, the Great Mother. For example, let's just give a quick example, just so you can see. So this is us walking through, going inside the temple of HEDJU, Karnak. Let me just speed it up real quick. Okay, so when you go in the temple and you see, this is Amen and this is Amenet. And on many of the columns in the temple, you will see Amen and Amenet. If you know what you're looking for. Now, you have people who will go to Kamit. They will take tours to Kamit. They will stand right up under these pillars that everybody's walking by. They will point up and say, hey, that's Amen with the two tall plumes. People will take pictures of him, and then they'll keep walking. Amenet, the great mother of creation. When people talk about the great mother, the great mother, the great mother, then here's another image of Amen and Amenet together, standing together. She's standing right next to him, but they don't know who she is, so they never even mention her. There are people who've been going back and forth to Kamit for 20 years. This is Amen and this is Amenet. These colossal statues about 10, 15 feet tall. So people have been going back and forth to Kamit for years, for decades, taking people on study tours and so forth. They walk right by Amenet because they don't know who she is. They don't even know to look for Ra'et. Ra'et is on those columns as well. When I first went to Kamit by myself, I was trying to figure out where I could find Ra'et on these pillars. And then they told me to look up and she was right above me. I took some pictures and video and so forth. But Ra'et is all over these columns. Amenet is all over these columns. You have the male deity Atem. You also have the female divinity Atemet. She's on the columns as well. You have the male beetle divinity Kepra or Kepri. You have the female beetle divinity Keprit, who's also called Usaset, Nebepet. She's all over the columns and in the tombs as well, but people don't know to look for her. They don't know about Amenet, they don't know about Ra'et, they don't know about Atemet and so forth. They also don't know about the male deity Ma'al, but they know about the female divinity Ma'at. But we show all of the complementary balance. We talk about Het Heru and complementary balance. We show all of that in our work. So when we go on our tour, we are talking about, hold on. When we go on our tour, we're talking about, we call it Arikat, which is the cosmology of creation. The cosmology of creation tour of Kamit and Khanit, Egypt and Nubia, because we're talking about the cosmology of these sacred temple structures and spaces that we move in and out of as we're going through also on the cruises and so forth, going from city to city, disembarking and going to these sacred spaces. So we have a few spaces left open for that if you would like to reserve your spot. When you look on the page, you can see you can reserve your spot for a $300 down payment, a deposit, and then you can make monthly payments, until, monthly all the way through April and so forth until you pay it off. There's also Some people can do a payment plan through PayPal, and they will extend it, PayPal credit and so forth. Some people do that. They can extend it for 12 to 24 months and so forth, and you're just paying PayPal a monthly, like $100 a month or something for 24 months or whatever. And then we also have 2 discount spots, which is half price. You'll see that as well, but you have to pay that up front or in 2 installments in order to access that. But if you'd like to reserve your spot, $300 deposit. We have about 5, either 4, I got to check, it's either 4 or 5 spots left. But if you'd like to reserve one of those spots, 1 or 2 of those spots, if you want to come with somebody and so forth, of course, it's open to Afro-Akani people, African Black people only. Go to the Adika page and reserve your spot now. And, you'll be locked in. Now, just want to make sure I didn't miss any questions in the chat room before we end the stream. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so there's a question about seeing an image of purple and so forth when you were communicating with an ancestral spirit. So it depends on what's going on. Sometimes when you see a spiritual entity, it's either a divinity or an ancestral spirit or a discarnate spirit that's not related. So purple is associated with certain female divinities and so forth, male as well, but certain abosom and so forth. But you would have to assess whether or not the communication you were having was with the mother, if it was with a divinity on abosom, if it was a spirit in the dwelling place, in the domicile that's unrelated but somehow attached and so forth. That's something that has to be assessed. Now, we posted and we'll post it back up. Let me pull this back up. We're going to go to our Kongwa Suya page. We posted one of the Hoodoo course, just so you can see that front page, but one of them deals with ancestral communication and so forth, so I just want you to see that. These kinds of events or happenstances are assessed. Sometimes people will just give you a quick little response. Okay, so one of our courses is called Nkom. All of these courses are archived, by the way. All of these courses. The Nkom course, that was a 4-week course we did. And the archive version of the course, all 4 sessions are available. We go, so they're 50% off. So our 4-week courses are $10. The 6-week courses are $15 and so forth. We have 38 online courses. So you can access any one of those 38 online courses, and you'll see each one, and you'll see the links and so forth. The Nkom course, it says 4 elemental rituals of spirit communication, practical instruction. We have Oshwe, Nkomre, Susuhon, and Okragware, which is libation, ancestral shrines, meditation, spiritual head cleansing, cleansing soul, and so forth, the ritual head washing and so forth. So we go into detail about that in that 4-week course. You want to be, sometimes people will give just quick little answers. Oh, you see purple, that represents Oya. Maybe it does, maybe in this particular instance, it does not. The way you begin to assess what's happening is to establish a strong relationship with your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. And you have to do that by ritual means. So you set aside a specific time, space, and manner in which to communicate with them. That's what the Nkomre is, and we go into detail about that. And all the documents that we talk about are free downloads and so forth, so you can access them. But the more you spend time, it's no different than working out. The more you go consistent at the gym, the stronger you become. You can't go to the gym one day and then wait for 7 days and wait 10 days and go again and so forth. You're never going to become more powerful. The more consistent you are with the ritual work at the Nkomre, at the shrine, with your Nsamanfo, your ancestresses and ancestors, the more receptive you become. The more spiritually receptive you become, the more consistent you are with them. Then you begin to notice the differences in communication. Who's communicating? What is the nature of the spirit that's communicating? Is it an ancestral spirit? Is it the energy of a discarnate spirit that's not related to me, that's somehow connected or attached themselves temporarily? Is it communication from one of the forces in nature? But you have to develop that relationship with your own people, your spirit genetic ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated. We deal with the spiritually cultivated class of our ancestresses and ancestors. Everybody who transitioned wasn't a spiritually cultivated individual. Some of them were criminals, some of them were misinformed, self-destructive, but you have a small percentage of people who transition in your blood circle, and Black only, of course, who were spiritually cultivated, lived in harmony with divine order, and they have a responsibility to assist you in your development. And that's the class of ancestral spirits from your own blood circle, not somebody else's, but from your own blood circle that you establish that relationship with. That's part of your responsibility as an Afurakani adult, Afurakani adult. So, okay. But that's how you begin to chip away at that. So, and even if somebody did a reading for you and said, oh, that was your mother and she said this and that, even if the reading was correct, sometimes the reading may be incorrect. Somebody may be, misinformed and not very receptive. They give you a wrong answer. But even if it was correct, once you get that information from them, you still need to go back yourself and confirm that. You don't make yourself dependent on what somebody else is saying. It's good they give you some information, but you have to take that information and you need to verify that with your own people through your own ritual process. If you don't do that, then you're totally dependent and perpetually dependent on somebody else to communicate with your people when it's your responsibility to develop that relationship so you can communicate with your people, and you can do that for your children and grandchildren as well. So, all right. Okay. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything in here. All right. So we're going to go ahead and end it here. But of course, if you have any questions, you can hit us up on Instagram is Odwirafo, Odwirafo Akan on Facebook, as well as Kwesi Akan on Facebook, Odwirafo on X or Twitter and so forth. And we post, everything that's coming up on those pages. We also have our Hoodoo Cast podcast, and let me just put the link to that real quick, because we actually have a Hoodoo Cast podcast. And when you look on the page, you'll see that we have 7, and you look on our YouTube page, of course, we have 7 episodes up right now. We're going to get back to the episodes next week. We've been working on this film and completing this film, so we were working on that. But next week, we're going to get back to the 8th episode and get back to posting episodes weekly. But right now, we have 7 episodes up. If you haven't seen them, you can check those out. We're on all the streaming platforms, as you can see: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, iHeart, Deezer, YouTube, of course, all of that. But we also have a Patreon community for Hoodoo Cast. When you go to the Patreon community, you will see that our Patreon subscription is $7.77 a month. And I'll put that link in the chat room also. And it'll be in the description for this video. So what we do with the Patreon piece, okay. People have early access to the video releases. We released the audio on one day. We released the video version. So we released the audio version on Spotify and Apple Music and all the different platforms. So when people are working out or driving or doing whatever, they can listen to the podcast. But then we also released the video version on the following day. So you get early access to the episodes. You also get access to many of our online courses. So we have 38 online courses. Most of them are either $10 or $15. But when you pay the $7.77 per month, we put a number of them already, about 13 of those courses on the Patreon site. And we're going to add more as well. So you'll have access to those courses. You also have access to our screenings. So the virtual screening, if you're on Patreon, you don't have to purchase the $13 ticket. You're already on Patreon, so you get access to that. You also get access to our first film. We put that on the Patreon site as well. The different events, if you're on the Patreon site, instead of paying the $24 to come to Atlanta, which includes the film as well as the vegan meal and so forth. But if you're on Patreon, that event for you is free. So people who are in the Patreon group get, additional things, as well as some behind the scenes, things that we're going to be posting as well. So if you want to join our Hoodoo Cast Patreon group, $7.77, you can join that now. You can cancel at any time, but we have 7 episodes up and we're going to be doing the weekly podcast back again. We took a few weeks off because in between a couple of these episodes that we did, like in June and July and August and so forth, we were working on the film. So we had to take some time off to, complete the film. But now that we're finishing that whole process up, we're going to get back to podcasting. So, okay. So once again, Yeda, I say we thank everybody for tuning in to this live stream. Please hit the like button and subscribe to us so you can get these notifications when we decide to go live on these different topics. So for those who are unaware, we have published 31 books. When you go on our website, all of the 31 books, the ebook versions, you can download for free. Our books have been free for years. We have softcover versions that we are moving over to Amazon. So we're not selling the softcover versions right now. We're transitioning them to Amazon. But the ebook versions, you can download all of them for free. And we've had them for free for the past, 8 or 9 years. So we don't want people to not be able to access accurate information if they don't have the funds at that particular moment. So we've always made the ebook versions free of every book that we put out. And then we sell the softcover versions, but the ebook is free. So you can check those out. And then we have the 38 online courses, as we said, between $10 and $15. But you get on Patreon, you can access those for $7.77 a month. But for those of you who would like to see the brand new Hoodoo film, once again, go to the let me put this up. Hold on a second. Okay. So for those who just joined, our brand new documentary on the Hoodoo tradition, Akan, Ancestral religion in North America, the virtual screening is this Monday. So you can get tickets from our website, the Eventbrite page, and so forth. And you can do that now. So, okay. So once again, Yeda say we thank everybody for tuning in. And Yebesha Bio, we will meet again. That's up.